I trusted him. He was my son, my only boy. He said he was here to help after my fall, after the loneliness, after my body stopped being what it used to be. He cooked, cleaned, even brought me tea in bed. But behind his kindness, there was something else, something cold. I told him he could do whatever he wanted. Just don't record me. Don't violate what little peace I had left. But he did. He watched. He filmed. And I discovered the truth too late. Or maybe just in time. If you're watching this, please like, share, and subscribe. Because this isn't just my story. It's a warning. I'm not the kind of woman who cries easily. I raised 2 children, buried a husband, and outlived both my parents before I turned 60. I've been called strong, stubborn, even cold. But none of those words prepared me for what was waiting behind my own front door. My name is June Whitlock. I'm 67 years old. And this story, it still chokes me when I try to say it out loud. But I'm saying it anyway. For every woman who's been told, just rest, while her rights were stripped away in silence. If you've ever felt like your own home became a trap, please like this video, share it, and subscribe. And tell me where you're from in the comments. You're not alone. I promise you that. It all began with a fall. The kitchen floor was slick with spilled tea. I slipped while trying to carry a tray. The sound of my hip hitting tile echoed through the house louder than any scream. I lay there, half drenched and in pain, whispering my late husband's name like he could still come running. But no one came. It took the neighbor's dog barking for hours before someone knocked. The ambulance came. The hospital followed. And then came that question every old woman dreads. Do you live alone? I hated how they looked at me when I said yes. Like I was already halfway to the grave. My daughter, Leslie, called from Seattle. She cried on the phone, said, "Mom, I can't leave the kids right now. But I'll send someone. Maybe a nurse." And then my son, Eli, spoke up. He called that night. "Ma, don't waste money on strangers. I'll come. I'll stay. I'll take care of you." I cried when he arrived 2 days later. He looked tired, worn. His beard was patchy, and he'd lost weight since his last visit. But his arms wrapped around me like a promise. He moved into the guest room and settled in like he belonged there. For the first week, it was comforting. He made meals. He read to me at night. He carried me up the stairs when I was too tired. He even washed my hair. He called me Queen June, said I was still the most beautiful woman he knew. I laughed at that. "You need glasses," I told him. But the truth? I liked hearing it. After a few days, though, his habits shifted. He got up before me. "Rearrange the living room for better access," he said. The couch was turned to face a new speaker system, one I didn't remember buying. He said it was for music. He started asking me to leave my door unlocked in case something happened. I resisted at first, then relented. He began giving me long hugs. Too long. He'd tuck my hair behind my ear and say, "You're still soft like when I was little." I told myself he was just emotional, that we were both grieving, that this was what closeness looked like after years of distance. I started feeling awkward getting dressed, so I started locking the bathroom. One morning, he gently knocked and asked if I was mad at him. "No, sweetheart," I said. "I just need privacy." His smile tightened. That night, I found one of my nightgowns, my favorite cotton one, missing. It turned up 2 days later, freshly laundered, folded at the edge of my bed. No one said a word about it. Then came the first flicker of something wrong. I woke up from an afternoon nap and noticed a tiny red light blinking on the bookshelf. I thought it was a battery light from an old device. I moved toward it, but Eli stepped into the room suddenly. "Careful, Ma. You nearly tripped on the charger cable." I didn't even see a charger. He unplugged something and said he'd rearrange the electronics later. Then he kissed the top of my head and whispered, "You should rest more." I smiled, but something in me went cold. That night, I checked the bookshelf. No light, no cable, Just the usual picture frames and the ceramic angel I'd owned since the 90s. Maybe I'd imagined it. Maybe I was tired. Or maybe I wasn't supposed to see it. They say you only notice a cage once the door slams shut. But sometimes the door never slams. It just closes slowly, quietly, like it did in my house. If you're still watching, thank you. If you're a woman over 60, or if you've ever felt the walls of your own home turn strange, please like this video and subscribe. Someone needs to hear this story. Maybe that someone is you. After Eli moved in, everything began to feel easier. And then, harder. He insisted I stop setting alarms. Sleep in, Ma. Your body's tired. So I did. Soon, he began waking me up himself, with tea already sweetened. He helped me to the bathroom, laid out my clothes, turned on the heater before my feet even hit the floor. You don't need to worry about a thing, he'd whisper. And at first, I was grateful. A little comfort after all the loss. But somewhere in the middle of those mornings, something shifted. He changed the way I kept track of time, moved the clocks, turned off the chiming wall clock I'd had since my wedding day. One day, I tried to find the calendar. It was gone. He said, "We're not running a hospital, Ma. Stop worrying about dates." Then he started cleaning out drawers. My drawers. Just organizing, he smiled, tossing out my old journals, the ones I hadn't opened in years. I didn't say anything, because at that age, you learn not to complain when someone's helping. But help isn't supposed to feel like a lock tightening around your wrists. Then came the cameras. At least, that's what I thought they were. Tiny blinking lights on devices I didn't remember buying. A clock radio that reset every day, even after Eli said he'd fixed it. An air freshener that clicked when I walked past it. A box labeled router extender that stayed oddly warm, even when unplugged. I started hearing faint sounds at night, clicks, beeps. Eli would dismiss them with a laugh. This house is ancient, Ma. Probably just settling. But it wasn't just the house that was settling. It was me. Into a routine he created. A schedule he controlled. A rhythm he conducted like a conductor, leading an invisible orchestra. At dinner, he'd comment on things I hadn't realized I did. I noticed you sigh before you stand up. I know you scratch your elbow when you're nervous. I've timed how long you sleep on your left side. You breathe easier that way. I laughed the first few times. It felt like a compliment, like someone cared. But by the 10th time, I wondered how he knew so much. Why he was watching so closely. I told myself he's just observant. He's worried. I wanted to believe it. Then one day, I tried to use the front door. Just to step outside. Feel the wind on my face. It was locked. Not just latched, keyed from the inside. I looked for the spare key in the dish by the door. Gone. I checked the kitchen drawer. Gone. I stood there, my walker under one arm, my house key nowhere in sight, and a lump forming in my throat. I turned around, and there he was. Smiling. Going somewhere? I just wanted a little sun, I said, trying to sound casual. He walked over slowly, placed his hand gently on my shoulder. You don't need to go out there, Ma. Everything you need is right here. I'll open it for you later. Then he kissed my forehead and turned off the hallway light behind me. It stayed off the rest of the day. I've always been a creature of habit. I like my mugs where I can reach them, my yarn basket beside the recliner, and my mirror angled just right toward the window so the morning sun makes me feel alive again. But something changed in my room. Something small, and yet it ruined everything. It was a mirror, but not mine. The one I'd had for years, the oval one with the hairline crack in the bottom corner, was gone. In its place stood a sleeker, taller mirror. Black-framed. Whiter. Too clean. Too sharp. It didn't belong. I stood in front of it and stared. Not at my reflection, but at the delay. It was subtle, almost unnoticeable, but there. When I tilted my head, my reflection followed a half-second later. When I raised my arm, the movement echoed instead of mirrored. I blinked. Backed away. looked again. And then I called out Eli. He came in too quickly, as if he'd been listening from the other side. "Where's my mirror?" I asked. "Oh," he said, too casually. "The old one was dusty. Cracked. I got you this one. You deserve better." I nodded, forcing a smile. But inside, my stomach tightened. Later that day, I found my old mirror leaning against the wall in the basement. Cracked, yes, but not broken. And, behind it, was the box it came in, still taped shut. My old mirror had never been replaced. It had been removed. I sat on the couch that evening pretending to knit while Eli cooked dinner. He whistled while stirring sauce, his back to me, like nothing was wrong. But I couldn't hear the tune, only the ticking in my ears. That night, I covered the new mirror with a sheet. The next morning, the sheet was folded neatly on the dresser. The mirror uncovered again. That same day, something else went missing. My lavender body powder. Nothing expensive. Just a small tin my husband had bought me from a roadside shop years ago. I searched everywhere. Even the trash. Gone. When I asked Eli, he shrugged. "Maybe you tossed it by mistake." But the next morning, I smelled lavender when I stepped out of the shower. I turned. The smell wasn't coming from the bathroom. It was coming from the hallway. And it was strongest near the air vent. I bent down to check. A tiny square grid. Nothing unusual. Until I pressed my hand against it, and the metal was warm. Not room temperature, warm. Like something electronic was sitting behind it. I tapped on it lightly. And again, I saw it, the blink. Just a flash of red. Barely visible. Then gone. I stared at the vent, breathing heavily. And for the first time in days, I locked my bedroom door. That night, I had a dream I was being watched. Not touched. Not harmed. Just watched. Like an animal in a glass cage. Observed. Documented. Judged. I woke up sweating. Eli was standing in the doorway. "Bad dream, Ma?" I didn't answer. He walked in slowly, holding a fresh towel. "I noticed your sheets were damp. Thought I'd bring you a dry one." "How did you know?" I asked. He smiled. "I hear everything, remember?" Then he placed the towel beside me, kissed the top of my head, and turned off the lamp. That night, I didn't sleep. The next morning, I checked every vent, every outlet, every corner. Nothing obvious. Just the occasional faint red. Gone before I could prove it. I didn't have the tools. I didn't have the proof. But I had a feeling. And in your bones, when you're old, when you've lived long enough, you know when something isn't right. You can't always name it. But you feel it, like a change in the weather before the sky splits open. I didn't tell anyone. Who would believe me? Leslie? She barely called. The neighbors? Too busy. So I waited. And watched. Because if he was watching me, I was going to watch him back. There's something cruel about silence. When you're young, silence is peace. But when you're old, especially in a house that doesn't feel like yours anymore, silence is a warning. If you're still here listening, thank you. Please like this story and subscribe if it speaks to you. And tell me, have you ever felt like your own home was no longer your own? Because I did. And it all came to a head the day I opened the drawer Eli told me never to touch. It was a Thursday. I remember because the birds outside were especially loud, and I hadn't heard birds in weeks. I was alone. Eli had left to get groceries, which was strange because he never left me alone anymore. Not even for 10 minutes. I used to love that freedom. Now it terrified me. What if this was my only window to look for answers? I stood up slowly, ignoring the ache in my hip, and hobbled to his room. It still smelled like him, cologne, and something chemical. Plastic-like. Artificial. The curtains were drawn. The floor too clean. Like no one actually lived in it. I moved toward the nightstand. The top drawer opened easily, pills, gum, receipts. But the bottom drawer, it was locked. That same drawer he always tapped twice before bed. The one he kept a key for on a chain around his neck. But he made a mistake. He'd left his laundry in the basket outside the bathroom, and the chain was in his pocket. I found the key wrapped in a crumpled tissue, almost like he didn't trust it out in the open. With trembling fingers, I unlocked the drawer. What I saw inside changed everything. Cables. Black ones. Thick ones. 3 USB flash drives labeled with numbers 0, 9, 12, and 17. A folded receipt from an electronics store across town for 4 mini surveillance units. One of them circled in red ink, night mode, enabled. At the back of the drawer sat a small notepad. I picked it up carefully. The handwriting was his. Slanted, rushed. But it was definitely Eli's. There were lists. Times. Dates. Rooms. Sunday, bedroom 2 a.m., no reaction. Tuesday, adjust lighting angle near dresser. Thursday, mirror delay confirmed. Angle 42 degrees. Blinds closed. I nearly dropped it. It was like reading lab notes. Like I was the subject. There was a name scrawled at the top of the page. Project JW. JW. June Whitlock. Me. That moment, I knew. I wasn't being cared for. I was being studied, tracked, and recorded. I heard a sound downstairs, front door slamming. Panic surged. I stuffed everything back in the drawer, wiped down the handles, and returned the key to his pocket in the laundry basket just in time. He came into the house, calling cheerfully, "Ma, I got your ginger cookies." My hands were shaking. He stepped into my room a few minutes later, placing a small packet of cookies on the nightstand. "You okay?" he asked, eyes narrowed. I nodded. But in that moment, I realized something dangerous. He didn't just observe me. He read me. My posture. My pulse. My lies. I had to be careful. That night, I started my own journal. I used an old book of crossword puzzles, hollowed out the pages, left the outer layer untouched. Each night, I wrote what I saw, what I suspected. I drew maps of camera positions, noted red light flashes, tracked what clothes went missing and which towels he replaced too often. I was playing detective in my own home, but I had to do it with one foot broken, the other wrapped in fear, because Eli was watching. And worse, he thought I didn't know. There's a certain weight to the ordinary. A towel, a teacup, a nightgown. When you've owned something for years, when your skin has brushed against it, when it's soaked your tears, it becomes part of you. So you notice when it changes. The towel on my bed that day wasn't mine. And I knew it the second I touched it. It looked similar, blue, cotton, slightly faded. But the edges were too crisp, too new. And it didn't smell like lavender and fabric softener. It smelled like plastic and heat, like machinery. If you're still here listening, thank you. Please like and subscribe if this story touches something deep inside you. And let me ask, have you ever felt like the things around you weren't really yours anymore? I did. And it started with that towel. It was folded too precisely, military precise, on the corner of my bed. Not the way I fold things. I'm a tuck-and-go woman. Always have been. My daughter used to tease me for it. I stared at it for a full minute before touching it. It wasn't just new. It was strange. Heavier. With a stitched tag I didn't recognize. The thread on the corners was thick, too thick. Something inside me said, "Don't use it." But I had to know why it felt wrong. I carried it into the bathroom, shut the door, and locked it. Then I flipped it open on the sink. That's when I saw it. A tiny glint of glass, barely larger than a pinhead, tucked beneath the hem of the fabric. I froze. Using tweezers from the medicine cabinet, I peeled the seam back just slightly, and there it was, a lens, embedded inside the towel, facing outward, toward whoever held it, as if designed to catch something. Or someone. I nearly vomited. I didn't scream, didn't cry. I just stood there, towel in hand, heart pounding like thunder behind my ribs. When I opened the door again, I acted like nothing was wrong, placed the towel neatly in the laundry basket, washed my hands, and then I smiled when Eli came in holding a tray. Made your favorite, he said. Carrot soup and toasted sourdough. I thanked him, took the tray, and locked eyes with him for a fraction of a second longer than I should have. His smile dipped, just barely. That night, I checked every piece of fabric in the house. The new slippers he bought? One had a bump under the sole. The bathrobe? A strange weight in the sash. Even the curtain rod in the guest bathroom was warm to the touch, like something powered. He wasn't just watching me. He was everywhere. But I couldn't accuse him, not yet. Not without proof I could trust. Not without putting myself in danger. So I started removing things slowly. Bit by bit, I replaced the towels with older ones I'd hidden in a storage trunk. Used my worn slippers instead of his gift pair. Turned off the lights manually instead of the switches he installed that worked on voice. And then, my first small rebellion, I burned the towel. In the fire pit behind the shed while he was at the store. I made sure the camera on the back porch was unplugged. I made sure no one saw me. I watched the fabric turn to ash, the plastic hiss and curl, the lens crack and melt. It wasn't justice, but it was something. That night, he stood at my door. Did you like the towel? He asked, voice soft. You didn't leave it in the laundry. I looked up from my book. Sorry, I said. I must have misplaced it. He paused. Strange. I didn't see it anywhere. We held the silence between us like a loaded gun. Then he nodded. Well, I'll get you another. I went to bed with my bedroom light on, and the closet door open, and my shoes on, just in case. I couldn't sleep. I didn't feel safe. Not in my house. Not with my son. Not anymore. You don't forget the sound of breath in a room that's supposed to be empty. You don't unhear it. No matter how much you try to convince yourself it was a dream, the hum of your ceiling fan, or the wind outside, you know. Your body knows. Before your mind catches up. That's what happened to me the night I stopped pretending everything was fine. Please, if you're still here, I'm grateful. Like this video. Subscribe if you haven't. And ask yourself, have you ever felt someone watching you without being seen? Because I did. And I wish to God I was wrong. It was around 2:30 in the morning. I hadn't been sleeping well for weeks by then, and that night I left the light on again. I'd taken to sleeping in old cotton pajamas and a cardigan over the top. Not because of the cold, but because I felt exposed in anything less. Like someone might see me, even in the dark. I laid down with a pillow behind my back, the lamp dimmed low, and my journal tucked inside the old crossword book beside the bed. I drifted off sometime after 1 o'clock. And then, I heard it. A breath. Not mine. Not through a wall. In the room. I opened my eyes a sliver, just enough to see the faintest outline. A figure. Still. Close. At first, I thought I was dreaming. Then I heard it again, that breath. Shallow. Intentional. Like someone trying not to make noise, but needing to be close enough to listen. My pulse thumped so hard I could feel it in my teeth. I kept still. Didn't flinch. Didn't blink. He moved. He moved, slowly like fog drifting across a lake. He leaned over me. And in the pale halo of the dim lamp, I saw his eyes. Not curious. Not loving. Studying. Like I was an exhibit. Like he was memorizing me. And then he did something that made my blood run colder than anything before. He reached into his pocket, pulled something small out, and pointed it at my face. A phone. A remote. A camera? I couldn't tell. All I knew was that it clicked. Just once. Then he leaned in, almost whispering, his breath sour with coffee and metal. You sleep lighter than you used to. I nearly screamed, but I held it. Because I knew screaming would break the spell. And I wasn't ready to confront him. Not yet. Not without a plan. He straightened. Stood there another moment. And then, just as silently as he'd appeared, he turned and walked out. I waited 10 full minutes. Then I got up, closed the door, locked it, pulled the chair from the desk and jammed it under the knob. And then I wept. Not loud, not wild. Just a quiet flood of grief for the home I no longer had and the son I never really knew. I didn't sleep the rest of that night. I wrote everything down, word for word, breath for breath. I drew the outline of where he stood, where he leaned, what I saw in his hand. And then I made a decision. If I couldn't get him to stop, I'd get him to slip. That morning, he acted like nothing happened. Pancakes, orange juice, music playing in the kitchen. Morning, Ma, he smiled. You okay? You look tired. I didn't sleep well, I replied. Nightmares again? Something like that. He tilted his head. Want me to read to you later? Like when I was a kid? My skin crawled. I'd like that, I said. Because I knew now he wanted me to trust him. He needed me to believe I was safe, so that he could keep doing what he was doing. And that meant I had to keep pretending. But deep down, I was already preparing for war. There's a strange power that comes with silent survival. When you know you're being watched and you don't flinch. When you act like nothing's wrong while memorizing every inch of the room like a soldier on a battlefield. That was me. I'd spent the last few nights mapping out every sound, every blink of red, every click, creak, and electronic hum I never used to notice. Because now I had to notice. If you've made it this far into my story, thank you. Please like, share, and subscribe if you believe silence should never be a woman's final chapter. Especially not in her own home. After the night Eli stood over me, I stopped sleeping deeply. I became the watcher. And every morning, while he took his power walks around the neighborhood, just 22 minutes, like clockwork, I searched. Not wildly, not hastily, but with care. Like I was unearthing something sacred or dangerous. That's how I found it. The wall vent beside my bed had always been crooked. It rattled slightly in the winter, made my bedroom a little colder than I liked. Eli had once said he'd fix the screws, but never did. I never gave it much thought. Until now. I pulled my nightstand aside and knelt on the floor. There, hidden behind the plastic grate, was a thin black device. No brand. No wires. Just a small, rectangular object the size of a bar of soap, wedged carefully behind the slats. I stared at it. And then I saw the blink. Faint. Red. Just once. But enough. Enough to know. It was alive. I didn't touch it. Not yet. Instead, I picked up my phone, Eli's old one, the one I found in a drawer after he upgraded, and snapped a photo. Then another. And another. I knew better than to delete them. Instead, I uploaded them straight to the cloud under a folder I created entitled, If Anything Happens to Me. That phone stayed hidden inside a hollow book in the back of my wardrobe. Later that day, I pretended to nap while Eli cooked in the kitchen. He passed by my door, glanced in, and then froze. I had left the nightstand out of place, just slightly. The vent exposed. I watched his expression change, just a flicker. The kind of flicker a liar shows when he realizes he's lost control of the scene. He came in gently, too gently. Hey, Ma, he said. You want the stand moved back? You were rearranging. I nodded. Makes it easier to reach my book. He smiled. Looks good there. Maybe we'll leave it like that. But that night, after dinner, I checked the vent again. The device was gone. In its place? A small lavender sachet. The same kind I used to keep in my dresser years ago. He'd replaced it with something familiar. Something comforting. He wanted me to think I'd imagined it. But it was too late for that. I didn't sleep that night. I sat up, knees tucked under my chin, writing in my journal by candlelight. And I made a vow, if he thought I was too old to fight back. He'd forgotten who raised him. He thought I was weak because I was quiet. But quiet is not weak. Quiet is watching. Quiet is waiting. Quiet is surviving. There are moments in life that split you in two. Before it. And after it. Before that day, I still clung to a sliver of hope. Maybe he was just misguided. Controlling. Sick in the head, but not evil. After that day, I knew better. Because after that day, I saw myself through his eyes. Not as a mother. not even as a person, but as an object, as material, as content. If you're still watching, thank you for staying. Please like, share, and subscribe. Because no woman, no human being should ever have their dignity stolen in silence. And yet, that's exactly what happened to me. It started with a box I wasn't meant to find. Eli had gone to pick up printer ink. That was his excuse. He left in a hurry, no usual 20-minute walk, just keys grabbed and door slammed. Something was off. I seized the moment. I went into his room. Not to snoop, but to survive. Behind the closet door, tucked under a pile of old shirts, was a lockbox. Metal. Small. The kind that had a 3-digit code. I didn't know the code until I remembered something. A date. My birthday. The one he used for everything when he was younger. June 12th. I turned the dial. 612. Click. Inside, 3 things. A folded envelope of cash. A key labeled back house. And a USB drive. I didn't think. I took the drive. Ran to my bedroom. Plugged it into the old laptop I hadn't used in years. And what I saw shattered me. There were files. Labeled with dates. Most recent first. M_upstairs_4 a.m. Shower left cam. Bed corner still feed. I opened one. It was me. Asleep. Naked under the covers. Tossing slightly. Turning from the pain in my hip. No awareness. No consent. No dignity. Just footage. Recorded from the ceiling. The angle too deliberate, too still, too calculated. I covered my mouth to keep from screaming. Another file, me in the shower. Grainy, blurry, but still me. Shampoo in my hair. Hands trembling. Eyes closed. He had recorded everything. I stared at the screen and felt the floor tilt beneath me. How long had this been happening? How many nights? How many views? Because yes, some of the files had upload logs. Upload logs. File sizes. Time stamps. Platforms. I saw words like compressed and exported. And suddenly I realized he wasn't just recording me. He was distributing me. I snapped the USB from the port like it was poison. Clutched it to my chest. And I sat there, in the center of my room, sobbing without sound. Not just for what he did, but for what I let myself believe. That he loved me. That he wanted to help. That I wasn't alone. But I was. I was utterly alone in a house filled with my own history and none of my future. That night, I didn't say a word. I smiled. Ate the food he brought me. Laughed at his bad jokes. But in my head, I was somewhere else. I was planning. Because now I had evidence. Now I had proof. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't imagining it. I had a weapon. And I intended to use it. Hope doesn't come rushing in. It doesn't knock on your door with sirens or blazing lights. No. Hope creeps in quietly through a cracked window or an old contact list you forgot you saved. That's how she came back into my life. Kara Whitfield. I'd met her years ago, back when she was just a teenager working the church bulletin table. She had a camera always hanging off her neck and eyes that noticed everything. She grew up, went to college, and disappeared into the whirlwind of journalism. But I remembered her. And more importantly, she remembered me. If you're still with me, please like this video and subscribe. There's a reason I'm telling you every step, every breath. Because women like me, women who survive in silence, deserve to be heard. And believed. I didn't know where else to turn. The police? They'd ask for details I wasn't ready to give. Family? There was no one else. My friends? Too far. Too fragile. So I went online, using Eli's old phone, the one I had hidden, and searched Kara's name. There she was. Byline after byline. Exposing corruption. Nursing home abuse. Domestic surveillance. Her email sat at the bottom of every article. If you or someone you know is being watched without consent, reach out. We believe you. I almost didn't write. My fingers hovered over the keys. What do you even say? My son is filming me without my permission. I have no idea where the videos go. I found them. I'm scared. Please help. That's what I typed. Then I attached one still image. Blurry. Harmless on the surface, but enough to raise questions. And I hit send. She responded within 12 hours. Subject line, let's talk. I'm listening. I read it 3 times before my hands stopped shaking. Inside, her message was brief but kind. I don't know your full story yet, but I believe you. Meet me this Sunday. Corner booth, Emery's Diner, 3 p.m. Bring what you can. Don't bring your phone. If he checks your emails, delete this after reading. You're not alone. I promise. That Sunday, I told Eli I wanted to visit the cemetery. He looked surprised. I hadn't been since the fall. But he nodded. I'll drive you, he said. I smiled. No. I want to take a cab. I need to do this part alone. He stared at me for a moment too long, then finally said, Okay, Ma. Just be careful. You get confused sometimes. I nodded. He didn't know I'd already scheduled the rideshare from the hidden phone. He didn't know about the duplicate USB I tucked into my sleeve. He didn't know. I wasn't coming back the same person. The diner was nearly empty. Kara was already there. Short hair now. A plain blouse. A recorder beside her coffee cup. She looked up and smiled. It wasn't pity. It was something sharper. Respect. You're braver than most people I know, she said, sliding me a fresh cup of tea. I slid the USB across the table. I'm not brave, I whispered. I'm just not dead yet. She plugged it into her laptop. Her expression changed with each file. By the 5th one, she closed the lid and said, This is enough to burn him to the ground. And then some. I wept. Right there. In a public booth. Among strangers and coffee mugs. But they weren't tears of fear anymore. They were tears of finally being seen. Before I left, she gave me a small pin. Wear this, she said. It looks like jewelry. It's a mic. If anything happens, press this button for 3 seconds. I'll know. I held it in my palm like it was gold. Because to me, it was. I returned home with my spine a little straighter. Eli greeted me at the door. Feel better, he asked. I smiled. Much. And, for the first time, I looked him straight in the eye. Because he still thought I was in the dark. But I had found the light. And I wasn't letting go of it. Control is a funny thing. You don't always notice when it slips out of your hands. But people like Eli, people who thrive on dominance, they feel it instantly. The moment the power begins to shift, even a whisper of disobedience is enough to make them panic. And panic makes people reckless. Thank you for staying with me. If this story is giving you chills, or courage, or even just clarity, please like it, share it, and subscribe. Because what happened next isn't just a warning, it's the moment everything changed. After I met Kara at the diner, I thought I'd feel safer. But instead, I started feeling watched in a different way. Because now he knew something was off too. He noticed when I took shorter showers. When I wore older clothes. When I began shutting my bedroom door instead of leaving it open just in case I needed him. He noticed the change in my voice. Less apologetic. More certain. He noticed I stopped asking him to help me with small things. I stopped depending. And that's when he got desperate. It was a Thursday night, his pasta night, as he called it. He cooked my favorite, fettuccine with white sauce, roasted garlic, and mushrooms. But that night, something tasted off. It wasn't bitterness. Not poison. Just flat. Like the edges had been blurred. 2 bites in, I started feeling strange. Heavy. Not just sleepy, but like the room was shrinking. Like my limbs were sinking into the chair. Feeling okay, Ma? He asked, folding his napkin slowly. You look a little pale. I nodded, but I was struggling to focus. His smile was calm. Too calm. Maybe you just need to lie down, he said. And then I saw it, a small bottle tucked behind the salt shaker on the counter. No label. Just a dark vial, nearly empty. My heart began to pound through the fog. I was being drugged. But I didn't panic. Because what Eli didn't know was that he was being recorded. Kara's pin, hidden in the brooch I wore, was live. She was listening. I had pressed the signal before dinner, just in case. And now my voice might have been soft, but it was clear. I feel strange, I whispered. I think I'm going to lie down. He helped me to the couch. Too eagerly. He adjusted the pillow under my head, brushed hair from my face. And then he said something that made me go cold despite the blanket he tucked around me. You always look more peaceful when you're quiet. Still, he leaned in closer. I'll just watch over you tonight. Okay, Ma. That night, I pretended to sleep for hours. My eyes closed. My breathing slow. But my mind was racing. He didn't know Kara had already texted me earlier that day. Recording works. I'll be listening tonight. Don't say my name aloud. Stay calm. She was hearing this. Everything. I heard him moving around the house. Then back in my room. Then silence. Around 3 a.m., I opened my eyes. The house was dark. The kitchen light was off. And he was asleep on the recliner, phone still in his hand. I moved as quietly as I could to my room. Locked the door. Pressed the emergency call button on the brooch. Just once. The next morning, I woke up to a message on the hidden phone. I heard it all. That's enough. Don't panic. Next step's coming. It was from Kara. I stared at the screen, my breath catching in my throat. Because I wasn't alone anymore. Not in the way that mattered. I was being heard, believed, protected. And, for the first time in months, I knew the end was coming. But this time, he wouldn't be the one writing it. Abusers always believe one thing, that silence means safety. That if they control your home, your body, your voice, you'll never have the courage or the help to fight back. But Eli forgot something. I may have been quiet, but I wasn't alone anymore. And silence? It was just the sound right before a storm. Thank you for staying with me. If this chapter reminds you of someone you know, or something you felt but couldn't say, please like this video, subscribe to this channel, and let others know you are never truly alone. 3 days after the drugged dinner, the doorbell rang. I was in the living room knitting when Eli looked up from his phone. Who the hell's that? He muttered, annoyed. He walked to the door. I stayed seated, heart pounding. A woman stood there in a gray uniform, clipboard in hand, work boots laced high. Logo on her jacket. Grid City Electric. She smiled politely. Routine neighborhood grid inspection. We're tracking an unusual signal near this block, possible interference. Just need 5 minutes to check your meter and inside panel. Eli hesitated. His eyes narrowed. Isn't that usually outside? Normally, yes, she said. But in older homes like this, panels were installed in utility closets or basements. It'll be quick. I watched him think. Measured. Calculated. Then he stepped back. Fine. Make it fast. She came in quietly. Tall. Calm. Hair tied tight. But when she passed by me, her fingers gently grazed my shoulder twice. A signal. It was her. Kara's contact. Not from the power company. From the truth. I sat still while she inspected the basement. But I knew better. She installed something. Multiple somethings. Kara had mentioned it in passing in one of her texts. She'll leave a listening device. Small. Wireless. 2-day battery. Disguised as your thermostat. And a second line. If he ever crosses the line again, we'll have it all. Eli didn't follow her downstairs. He stood in the kitchen scrolling his phone, pretending not to care. When she emerged 5 minutes later, he barely looked up. All done, she said brightly. No issues. Enjoy the rest of your day. He shut the door behind her and grunted. Waste of time. Bunch of wires and nothing else. But I knew better. And later that night, I found it. Tucked neatly on the hallway thermostat, just like she said. A small LED, invisible unless you knew where to look. I placed my hand gently over it and whispered, "Thank you." That night, I opened the flash drive again. I wanted to understand. What I saw went deeper than I ever imagined. It wasn't just videos of me. It was files, folders, names of others, dozens. Some labeled submissions, some labeled downloads, some marked custom requests. Custom. He wasn't just watching me. He was sharing me. And not just me. That's when I knew he had to be stopped. Not later. Not someday. Now. But I couldn't just walk away. I had to trap him in his own game. And that's exactly what I was about to do. Revenge doesn't always come with fire or fury. Sometimes, it comes in the form of a folded bedsheet, a whisper into a microphone, and a smile so soft, even the devil misses the dagger behind it. That week, I stopped being just his mother. I became the woman he'd never see coming. If you're still here, thank you. Please like, share, and subscribe if you believe silence should never protect the one who breaks us. This chapter may be hard to hear, but it's also the one where I finally stopped running. It began with one decision, to let him think he still had me. I put the tracking towel back. Not the original, of course. I'd burned that. But I stitched together a fake, folded it just the way he liked, and laid it gently on my bed. He'd see it. He'd believe I'd given up. Then I moved the bed slightly to face the hidden thermostat mic. I checked my brooch twice. I let him walk in during my nap, unbothered. I smiled up at him when he adjusted my pillow. And I whispered, "Thank you for everything, Eli. I'm lucky to have you." He softened, relaxed. Because predators don't just want obedience. They want gratitude. Later that evening, I asked for chamomile tea. Not because I needed it, but because I needed to test him again. When he brought it, I left it untouched on the table. An hour later, I found him pouring it out and replacing the mug. He didn't know I had filmed that on Kara's second device, now hidden behind the plant by the window. I started writing again, but not in code. I wanted him to see the pages if he snooped. Eli loves me. Eli protects me. Eli knows what's best. And I left it open by the bedside. He read it. I know he did. Because that night he asked me, "Do you still trust me, Ma?" I nodded slowly. With my life. He exhaled. Tension gone. But what he didn't know was that Kara had already received the first full audio dump. 12 hours of footage. Everything from the dinner he drugged to his murmured confessions in the hallway. Everything. Catalogued. I knew he was planning something. He was getting bolder. More confident. I saw it in how he walked, how he touched things that didn't belong to him. My scarves, my letters, even my lipstick. He began calling me darling. A word he hadn't used since childhood. "You're the only woman who's never left me," he said one morning. I smiled. But inside, I shivered. So I escalated the plan. I asked him to fix the bulb above my bed. It flickered at night, and I told him it kept me from sleeping. What I didn't say. I had already swapped it with one of Kara's smart bulbs. The moment he removed the cover to adjust it, the recording began. He leaned over the bed, unscrewing the fixture. He didn't know it was watching him. Listening. Uploading. That night, I wore the nightgown he liked seeing me in. The one he had previously replaced. But this one wasn't just a gown. It was bait. I pretended to sleep. The room lit just enough by the nightlight. No blankets. Exposed. Vulnerable. And then I heard him enter. His breath shallow. The floor creaked beneath his slow steps. He stood there, just watching. And then he whispered, "You really do need me, don't you?" He stepped closer. And I reached slowly, calmly, beneath my pillow. Pressed the emergency signal. 3 seconds. The mic blinked. Kara would know. And I said aloud, just once, just clearly, "Eli, what are you doing in my room? Again?" Silence. Then retreating steps. Then the door closed. He'd crossed the line. And I'd caught every second. There's a silence louder than thunder. It's not the silence of fear, or grief, or even pain. It's the silence right before justice knocks on the front door, when you truly know, that someone is finally coming for the one who hurt you. That morning, I heard that silence. And I knew. He was done. If this is your first time hearing my story, please like this video, share it, and subscribe to this channel. Because I've stayed silent long enough. Now I speak for myself, and for every woman who's ever been recorded, manipulated, or controlled and told, no one will believe you. They believed me. It started with a knock. Firm. 3 sharp raps against the front door. I was in the kitchen, buttering toast with trembling hands. Eli was upstairs. He didn't even hear it the first time. But I did. And I knew. They'd come. Kara had messaged me hours earlier. 2 simple words. It's time. She had forwarded everything, audio, video, timelines, to a private investigator she trusted. That investigator had handed it directly to a female detective, Detective Marissa Connors, who specialized in digital exploitation and elder abuse. She saw what they needed to see. And she acted. The knock came again. This time, louder. Eli came bounding down the stairs. Shirtless. I could smell his aftershave. He glanced at me. Did you order something? I didn't speak. He opened the door. 2 uniformed officers stood on the porch. Behind them, a woman in a navy coat holding a clipboard and a black folder. Eli Whitlock? One officer asked. His face froze. Yeah? We have a warrant to search this home in connection to a digital exploitation investigation. We'll need access to all your electronics, storage devices, and private workspaces. Step aside, sir. I've never seen a man's skin turn that pale, that fast. Wait, what? No, this is my mom's house. There's been a mistake. Detective Connors stepped forward. Calm. Measured. No mistake. Your mother made a report. We've reviewed the evidence. His head whipped toward me. I stood there, in my lavender cardigan and gray slippers, holding a butter knife in one hand, and my spine straighter than it had stood in years. You, he whispered. I said nothing. He laughed, short, sharp. She's old. She's confused. You can't take her seriously. The detective pulled a still image from the folder. A screenshot from one of the videos. Time-stamped. Labeled. Me, vulnerable. Asleep. Recorded from his ceiling. And another, his voice whispering from the hallway. You look more peaceful when you're still. I saw the blood drain from his face. The officers stepped in. They moved quickly. Polite. Professional. They took his phone. His laptop. Opened his secret drawer. One officer pulled out a flash drive and muttered, "Got it." Another bagged the fake towel from the laundry room. Eli turned to me, eyes wide, panicked. Mom, please. You don't understand. I didn't hurt you. I just wanted to protect you. You're all I have. I looked him straight in the eye. You were supposed to protect me, not profit from me. They cuffed him gently. He didn't fight. He couldn't. As they led him out, he passed me in the doorway. His voice cracked. I was the only one who stayed. And, for the first time, I didn't cry. I just whispered, "You should have left." That night, I sat in the same living room where I once pretended to nap, to hide, to survive. Only this time, I sat with a cup of tea and freedom. Kara called me. She said the news would run the story the next morning. The headline would read, "Elderly woman outsmarts exploiter son in chilling digital abuse case." But I told her I had a different title in mind. The day I took my silence back. I thought I'd feel free. I thought the day they dragged him out in cuffs would feel like the end of a horror movie, sunlight, applause, relief. But the truth? Justice doesn't erase betrayal. It just puts it in a box you can stare at without screaming. Thank you for listening. Thank you for believing. If this story has made you cry, rage, or remember your own story, please like it, share it, subscribe. Not because I need attention, but because every time we speak, another silence loses power. The article came out the next morning. Page 1. Front. Center. A younger photo of me. One of Eli, too, smiling, charming, the kind of face strangers defend before they even hear the facts. Mother outsmarts son in hidden camera scandal. The comments came fast. What a strong woman. How disgusting. He needs life in prison. Imagine doing that to your own mother. Is this even real? But the worst ones weren't about him. They were about me. How could she not know for so long? Sounds like she enjoyed the attention. She raised him. What does that say about her? People always want a hero. Or a villain. They don't like the gray in between. They didn't see the nights I stayed awake in terror. They didn't see the way he held my hand and whispered sweet words before stealing my privacy. They didn't know the sound of my breath when I was pretending to sleep while his camera stared down at me like God had gone blind. The detective called me that afternoon. Mrs. Whitlock, she said gently, we've recovered more from his encrypted folders. There's something we didn't expect. My stomach dropped. What is it? I asked. A pause. There are communications. Messages. Chat logs. It wasn't just him. He was part of a private group, members trading content. Requesting specific things. Paying for it. She didn't need to finish the sentence. I knew. He had sold me. Not just to strangers, but to a network. He wasn't just recording. He was submitting. I dropped the phone. My hands went numb. It was one thing to be watched. But to be sold? Exchanged like a product? I felt my soul leave my body for a moment. Just float there. Numb. Later that evening, Kara came over. She didn't speak. Just held me. I didn't cry. I had no tears left. Instead, I looked her in the eye and said, make sure the next article tells all of it. Every dark, disgusting, horrific detail. Not for me. For the women who will never get a microphone. For the ones still being watched in silence. She nodded. And the next day, she published a follow-up. Not just a victim, she was a product. The hidden market of exploitation in American homes. It shook the country. But even then, the headlines didn't tell the whole story. Because no article could explain what it's like to know your own child, the one you held, fed, sang lullabies to, used your trust as his business model. That pain? It doesn't go viral. It goes quiet. It sits in the bones. And lingers. People think the worst part is the betrayal. But it's not. It's the realization that it could have gone on forever, worse, deeper, more dangerous, if I hadn't fought back. Because monsters don't stop on their own. They evolve. And in my basement, I saw how much further he planned to go. If you've been following my story this far, thank you. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who might need to hear it. This part is hard, but it's also why I survived. It started with a key. After Eli's arrest, the detectives gave me back a few items they'd recovered from the property. One of them was a small brass key with a worn-out label, back room. I'd lived in this house for over 40 years. There was no back room. Or so I thought. I didn't sleep that night. Just stared at the key in my palm like it was a loaded weapon. The next morning, I went down into the basement. Most of it was storage, holiday bins, water heater, old shelving. But in the far corner, behind an artificial Christmas tree and a stack of broken chairs, I saw it. A door. Not a new door. A door that had been there, but covered, painted to match the concrete wall, hinges hidden. I reached for the lock. The key slid in. Click. The room smelled wrong. Not like mildew. Not dust. Clean. Too clean. Like bleach. And plastic. And electricity. There was a chair in the center. Upright. Wooden. Straps on the arms. I staggered backward. In the corner, a ring light. A mounted camera. On the shelf, wigs. Makeup. A folded nightgown mine. Not just a copy. My original. There were 2 monitors on a desk. One still flickering with a blue standby screen. Beside them, notes. Handwritten. Lighting angle too sharp. Add diffuser. Get voice samples. Edit out coughs. Frame tighter next time. Clients said distance too wide. Add more emotional expressions. Play up confusion. I dropped the pages. They felt radioactive. Because this wasn't just a recording setup. This was a set. A stage. A product studio. And the product was me. I leaned against the wall, unable to catch my breath. My own son hadn't just filmed me. He rehearsed me. Directed me. He was preparing for more. Worse. I don't even want to imagine what next time meant in his notes. Because I don't believe this room was just for watching. I think it was meant for keeping. I left the room without touching anything else. Locked the door. Threw the key in the sewer drain behind the garden. And I called Kara. She came immediately. She took photos. Documented everything. Handed it to the authorities. And then she turned to me and said, "You just saved more than yourself. If you hadn't exposed this now, he might have used this room on someone else." That night, I sat in the same kitchen where he used to cook for me, where I once thought kindness meant safety. I realized something. There are cages that look like comfort. There are chains made of sweet gestures and familiar voices. And there are prisons built not from bars, but from trust. I escaped mine. Barely. I never wanted fame. I didn't want to be a symbol. I just wanted peace. But when you survive what I did and speak up, the world suddenly wants to look at you. And not everyone looks with compassion. Some look with curiosity. Some with cruelty. And some with disbelief. So when the call came asking me to tell my story on live television, I almost said no. Until I remembered, there's another woman out there. Right now. Watching a red light blink in her own bedroom and telling herself it's nothing. If this story has made you feel something, anything, please like, share, and subscribe. Not for me, but for every woman who's ever been recorded without her permission, doubted for her truth, or silenced by someone who claimed to love her. The request came from WNX News, one of the biggest outlets in the state. Kara had shared my files with them under full consent. They were horrified, moved, and insistent. We'd like to feature June Whitlock. Live, unfiltered. Her words. Her story. I stared at the phone in my hand for an hour before answering. Even when I said yes, my stomach turned. What would I say? Would I cry? Would I freeze? Or worse, would I be doubted? The studio was cold. Bright lights. Makeup chairs. Wire microphones clipped to collars. They offered to do my hair. I declined. I wanted to look like me. The real me. The woman who had been watched, violated, gaslit, and broken. And the woman who now stood in front of the world, unapologetically alive. The anchor smiled, then turned to the camera. We're joined tonight by June Whitlock, whose story you may have read about in recent headlines. Tonight, for the first time, she's speaking directly to the world. June, thank you for being here. I nodded. And then I spoke. I'm not going to tell you what he did. Because you've read it. You've seen it. And some of you have whispered it to yourselves behind locked doors and late-night tears. So instead, I'm going to tell you this. He was my son. But he was also my predator. He told me I was safe. Then filmed me while I slept. He said he loved me, then sold me like a product. He made me think I was crazy, then built a room beneath my feet to strip away what little privacy I had left. And you know what hurt the most? Not the betrayal, not the cameras, not even the silence. It was this. I started to believe I deserved it. Because when you're old, alone, and forgotten, you start to think any attention is better than being invisible. But let me say this clearly. Being invisible is painful. But being watched without consent is hell. And if you are watching this and you feel like something is wrong in your home, it is. If you feel like your kindness is being used against you, it is. If someone is recording you, touching you, controlling you, call it what it is, abuse. And if you think you're too weak to speak, look at me. I'm 67. I walk with a cane, but my voice is stronger than his will ever be. The room was silent. Not a breath. Not a cough. The anchor sat frozen. And then a single clap from the stagehand. Then another. And another. And suddenly I was crying. Not out of fear, but release. Because I'd done it. I hadn't just spoken. I had roared. I expected silence. I expected maybe a handful of thank yous, a few angry voices, and then for it all to fade. What I didn't expect was the flood. It wasn't just a story anymore. It had become a mirror. And people weren't just looking at me. They were looking at themselves. Please like, share, and subscribe if this story has made you think differently. Whether it's your mother, your sister, or your neighbor, there's someone near you who's hiding her own pain. Let this reach her. The morning after the broadcast, Kara showed up with her laptop. She sat on my couch and said, "You need to see this." There were thousands of messages, emails, direct messages, comment sections flooded. I showed this to my grandma. She cried for an hour. This saved me from something I couldn't name. I never thought about how control can look like care. Until now. She's a warrior. How could a son do that to his mother? Is she writing a book? And then, others. This is fake. She probably liked the attention. Why didn't she just move out? She raised him. Must be something she did. I thought the worst part would be the haters. But strangely, it wasn't. The worst part was seeing just how many people had stories like mine. Kara sorted through them all. From widows. From women in wheelchairs. From war veterans. From foreign countries. One message simply read, "He films me too." I thought it was just to keep me safe. It's not. I know it now. Thank you. By noon, offers started coming in. A publishing house wanted the rights to my story. A major platform asked about a documentary. Even a women's advocacy group offered to fund a speaking tour. I said yes to only one thing, a private retreat for survivors. No cameras. Just chairs in a circle. Stories. Hands held tight. Truths whispered into the dark. Because I didn't need fame, I needed healing. But healing doesn't come without interruption. 2 weeks after the broadcast, I received a letter. Handwritten. No return address. I opened it carefully. The handwriting was familiar. Tight. Neat. Precise. Eli. "Ma, I know you hate me. I don't blame you. But I just wanted to say, I wasn't always like this. Something broke in me when Dad died. And I didn't know how to come back. I wasn't trying to hurt you. I thought I was creating something that mattered. Please believe me when I say I didn't know how deep I'd fallen. I still see you in my dreams. I hope someday you'll write back. Love, Eli." I folded the letter, burned it in the kitchen sink, and whispered to the flame, "I don't write back to ghosts. You can survive something and still feel broken. You can walk away, testify, scream the truth to the world, and still lie awake at night, feeling like your skin doesn't belong to you. That's the part no one tells you. Justice doesn't sew you back together. It just stops the bleeding. The rest? That comes from the ones who've bled too." If you're here now, please like and share this story. Because this chapter isn't about what he did. It's about what we did together. The women. The survivors. The quiet heroes with shaky hands and steady hearts. The retreat was held in a small center near the edge of a lake. No press. No microphones. Just folding chairs, quiet rooms, and meals served warm by volunteers. When I arrived, I was afraid no one would know me. But the moment I walked in, they stood. All of them. Women in their 60s. Women with canes. Women with grief in their bones and fire in their eyes. They didn't clap. They didn't swarm. They just nodded. The kind of nod that says, "We know. You don't have to explain a thing." Over the next few days, I listened to stories that shattered and rebuilt me. A widow whose caretaker grandson drained her accounts and filmed her changing, saying it was for insurance safety. A retired teacher whose landlord installed cameras in her ceiling fan. A blind woman whose own daughter took photos of her for strangers online. Different voices. Different wounds. Same silence. And now, the same reckoning. We laughed between sessions. We held hands during the hard parts. We made up silly names for our trauma. I call mine the shadow, one woman said, because it was always behind me. I called mine the room, because for so long I lived inside what he built mentally, emotionally, physically. Now I was walking out of it. On the final day, they asked if I'd speak, not to teach, not to lead, just to share one more thing. I stood slowly. I don't have wisdom, I said. I just have scars. But they've healed now. And I'm not ashamed of them, because they're the map of how I made it out. If you're still in your storm, hear me, you're not weak. You're not crazy. You are not what they said you were. You are still here. And that's enough. One woman cried. Another whispered, thank you. And a third, who hadn't spoken all weekend, finally said, I think I can go home now. That night, I stood outside under the stars, wrapped in a blanket. I wasn't afraid of the dark anymore, because now I knew it wasn't the dark that tried to destroy me. It was the person who thought I'd never find the light. But I did, and I wasn't walking out of it ever again. Closure is a myth. They don't tell you that. They say, you'll heal or time will make it easier. But what they don't say is this: sometimes the wound calls your name again. Even after the trial. Even after the prison doors slam. Even after you've rebuilt your body and your voice and your hope, it calls again. And this time, it asked me to return to court. Please like and share this story if it's meant something to you. Because while justice is loud, healing is often quiet. And this chapter is about what happens when both show up at the same time. It had been 7 months since Eli's arrest. 7 months since the flash drives, the cameras, the towel, the drugs in my tea. 7 months since I stood in front of the world and said, he was my son. But he was also my predator. I was at peace. Not whole, but no longer broken. And then I got the call. Mrs. Whitlock, said the voice on the phone. This is Detective Connors. We just received a motion filed by Eli Whitlock's lawyer. It's an early release request under a psychological rehabilitation clause. My stomach dropped. Release. I said. He's only been inside for 7 months. I know. It's rare. But if the judge grants a hearing, they may call you as a victim witness. You have a right to testify. Or you can decline. I didn't answer right away. Because I wasn't scared. I was tired. I walked into the kitchen, poured myself tea, and stood at the counter where he used to stand. I remembered his voice in the mornings. Ma, drink your tea while it's hot. I remembered how I smiled at him while he planned how to film me in my most vulnerable moments. I remembered how he said, you always look more peaceful when you're still. And suddenly I knew what I had to do. I called Kara. Told her everything. Do you want to go back to court? She asked. No, I said. I want to go back to truth. The next day, I sat down and wrote a statement. Not for the cameras. Not for the judge. But for him. It was submitted to the court under sealed record. But I'll read it to you now. To the court and to the man who used to be my son, you want early release. You say you're better. You say you've changed. I hope you have. I truly do. Because I've changed too. The last time I was in a courtroom, I was terrified to speak. This time, I choose silence. Not because I'm afraid, but because I no longer owe you words. I don't need to look at you. I don't need to explain what you did. The world already knows. And more importantly, I know. I know what happened. And I know who I am now. I am not your mother anymore. I am not your victim. I am not your prisoner. I am a survivor. And my voice will echo longer than your sentence ever could. Let the silence answer your request. I signed it. Sent it. And that was that. A week later, the DA called me back. The judge denied the early release, she said. They reviewed your statement. It spoke volumes. That night, I slept with the windows open. Let the wind in. Let the night sing to me. No nightmares. No breathing in the hallway. No blinking red lights. Just quiet. The kind I chose. People talk about closure like it's a moment. like it's a sentence, a phone call, a court decision. But the truth? Closure is 1,000 tiny choices. It's waking up without checking the corners of your room. It's breathing without holding your breath. It's turning a key not because you're locking someone out, but because you're finally letting yourself go. Thank you for listening to my story. Please, if this meant something to you, share it. Let someone else know they aren't alone. Let this be more than content. Let it be comfort. I hadn't been in the basement since they took him. The door to that room had stayed shut, covered in plastic, marked with tape, preserved for evidence, they'd said. But the case was closed. The files were sealed. And the house? It was still mine. Only, it didn't feel like it. Every wall carried a whisper. Every towel rack, a tremble. Every vent, a memory I didn't ask to keep. So that morning, I made tea, tied my scarf, and walked downstairs with my cane in one hand and my decision in the other. I opened the door. The basement light flickered once, then steadied. Dust danced in the air like it was waiting for a song. I stood in front of the room. The door was still locked, but I had the key this time. Click. It opened easier than I thought. Inside, nothing had moved. The chair, the ring light, the desk. I looked at it all, and I didn't cry. I didn't panic. I didn't crumble. I just said, no. No to the shame. No to the silence. No to letting a room like this define me. I turned, closed the door, bolted it, and I walked back upstairs. I packed 2 suitcases. My journals. My brooch. The photos that still made me smile. I called Kara. I'm ready, I said. She'd found me a cottage by the sea. Just 1 bedroom. White curtains. No cameras. No ghosts. Just waves. And windows that only opened outward. Before I left, I stood at the front door of my house. The one that had once held my family. My memories. My pain. I turned the key in the lock. Not because I was afraid anymore, but because I was done. Done surviving. Now, I was living. This is where my story ends. Not in a court. Not in a headline. Not in a scream. But in a whisper I give to anyone still hurting. You can reclaim your home. Your body. Your voice. Even if the world thinks it's too late. I was 67 when I started speaking. And I will never go silent again.